I have food in my mouth. Bread. Starting therapy for the first time can be kind of an intimidating experience if you don't know what to expect. And if you're trying out telehealth or online therapy, then that can also add an added layer of nervousness or anxiousness for some people. In today's video, I'm going to talk about everything that you need to know to prepare for your first telehealth session. And I'll go over 7 tips to help make sure that your experience of starting your online therapy goes nice and smooth. By the way, if we haven't met already, hi, I'm Dr. Therese and welcome to my channel. I help people take steps toward building a life that they don't need a vacation from. So if you're interested in more tips to help you build a more meaningful, more fulfilling life that you love, be sure to like and subscribe and click the little bell below. And thanks for your support of my channel. It makes a huge difference. So thank you so much. And if you'd like to stay connected on Instagram, be sure to follow me there at exploring.therapy. So let's go ahead and dive in and talk about 7 tips to help you prepare for your first telehealth session. The first thing I want to say is that if you're nervous, it's perfectly understandable. You're doing something new for the first time, and you may be feeling vulnerable because you're interested in therapy to work through something that perhaps has been a difficulty or a struggle. So if that's you, rest assured, these tips are going to help you to feel a bit more confident as you go into your first teletherapy session. So my first tip number 1, is to write things down. I know this one seems kind of basic, but what you want to do is, just so that you can avoid having your mind go blank, have a piece of paper and write down a few bullet points of things that you'd like to go over in therapy. And you can also write down questions that you have for your therapist. So these don't have to be a novel. You can just write down, I want to talk about anxiety, or I want to talk about my mother-in-law. And then you might ask questions about things that you're curious about. So you might be interested in knowing more about your therapist's education, their background, skills, or training. You're allowed to ask any questions that you want, but it's easy to forget them, so be sure to write them down. And this tip, I suggest that you carry with you as you move into sessions 2 and beyond, because after the initial session, you're still going to have things that come up during your week that you want to talk about. So most of my clients keep a therapy journal, and in that journal, they'll write down things that come up for them during the week. They'll write down the questions and the things they want to talk about in the next session. And it just really helps to keep your mind straight. Tip number 2 for preparing for your first teletherapy appointment is to be comfortable. Your therapist is not interviewing you for a job, so you're allowed to wear comfortable clothing and make the space something that feels comfortable to you. A lot of us as therapists who have physical offices, we make a lot of efforts to make sure that our office feels comfortable and inviting and is a space that will help you, hopefully, to feel okay to open up. So if you have a candle that you love, a warm fuzzy blanket, I also recommend having a box of tissues. That's also useful in case any emotions come up, but really allow yourself to be as comfortable as you like. Now, some of my clients take this to the extreme, and by that I mean we'll do our sessions in bed. That sounds weird. I mean, they're in bed, I'm in my office, and they're comfortably, they've just woken up. Sometimes it's an early morning session, and it's perfectly fine. You do not need to get dolled up or dressed up for therapy. Just come as you are, and I promise you we're not judging you for it. In fact, I love when my clients are comfortable. It lets me know that they're at ease with me, and it kind of helps them, I think, sometimes to open up more. Tip number 3. This is you time, so try to create a sacred space. And one of the most helpful things that you can do is make sure that you have the opportunity to have a private space where you're alone. And I know this seems basic as well, but when we're doing telehealth, we're in our homes, and in our homes, we have our pets, our children sometimes, our partners or spouses, and all of those things can be a bit of a distraction when you're trying to have your therapy session. So while it's not a crime, of course, for someone to walk in during the session, and it happens all the time, for you to get the most out of your session, especially your first one, try to make sure that you have a private space where you don't worry that someone will overhear you. And here's a little side tip that that will help with this. If you're worried that people may overhear you in the space, try to use white noise on your phone or use a white noise machine, which you can get online, outside of the door of the room that you're meeting in. And this will help to interfere with the sound a little bit so that people who are on the other side of that space, like that door, for example, won't hear you as much. So you really do want to make the effort to feel like you can say anything and everything. And so just taking that extra step, I think, makes a big difference. Tip number 4 is to be honest. It's perfectly normal, as I said before, to feel nervous meeting your therapist for the first time. And so just let them know that if that's how you're feeling. And frankly, this is kind of a rule for therapy in general. Try to feel like you can open up and say whatever's on your mind. Don't worry about impressing your therapist or trying to get them to like you, but instead say what you really think and feel. And if something makes you feel uncomfortable, if something lacks clarity, or if you just need more information, speak up and let your therapist know what you need. And this is an important life skill as well, right? Learning to advocate for yourself. So it doesn't help anyone if you are not honest with yourself and with your therapist. Be completely honest. Tip number 5, and this one is a biggie for telehealth and teletherapy, test drive your devices. Typically, when you're meeting with your therapist for telehealth, you're using an online platform like Zoom or something like that. And there are bound to be technical difficulties. So it really helps your first session to go smoothly when you've done a test drive of these things in advance. So test your internet connection, test your Zoom link. If you need to, practice using the link with a friend or family member to make sure all is going well. And make sure that things like your microphone are working. Get your space set up if you have the time to do that. And all of these things will make your first session go so much smoother. If you are someone who is not technologically gifted, that's totally okay. Ask for help. And you can also ask your therapist for this in advance if you're not sure of what to do. And I would also recommend that you double check any links that you're supposed to click just to make sure that everything is working okay. And trust me, if you take 15 minutes to do this before your first session, you'll be so glad that you did, because it can be so stressful when you're starting out in your first session and you're fumbling and you don't know how to turn your microphone on or your camera on. So figure this stuff out in advance. You'll be glad that you did. And by the way, if you are having any technical difficulties, it's completely normal. And we as telehealth therapists are very used to that. Let us know. So if during the session you're having trouble seeing or hearing us, or the connection is getting fuzzy, let us know. Don't just sit there and nod your head and act like everything is okay if you can't hear what we're saying. Speak up. Let us know and we can kind of walk you through and troubleshoot if you're having some technical difficulties. Tip number 6 is to just breathe. When we're feeling nervous, we tend to hold our breath or our chest can get tight, and it just makes things a little bit harder. So before your session, I like to recommend using a mindfulness app like Calm or Headspace, or just practicing some diaphragmatic breathing. And if you're not sure where to start, you can look on YouTube. There's so many videos that can walk you through what to do, but taking some time to just take a few deep breaths before your session can help you to feel a little bit more calm and centered and get your thoughts together, and it'll help you to take more advantage of your session. So remember to breathe. By the way, there are added benefits to working on your breathing, including that when you breathe, it reduces your feelings of stress and anxiety, and it can even lower your blood pressure and your heart rate. So breathing and taking the time to really take slow, deep breaths is a win-win. So I just want to check in. Are these tips things that you've heard of before, or are they new to you? And are you finding them helpful? Let me know in the comments below. And my last tip for preparing for your first teletherapy session is it's time to be real. No need to be a perfectionist. And so what I mean by this is you don't need to rearrange your furniture or do a complete cleaning overhaul of your home. Just be real. You don't need to impress us, and you certainly don't need to change things in your normal life to accommodate what you're going to do in your telehealth session. So remember, like, therapists are human too, and we've seen it all. So it's okay if there's a baby or a dog that runs through the background of your video. It's okay if you get interrupted sometimes. And it's certainly okay if you don't feel like wearing makeup or doing your hair. I am a huge advocate for my clients wearing their sweatpants and being comfortable. So feel free to be totally real. You'll be so much more comfortable, and it will just help your session to go that much more smoothly. Remember that it generally takes time to feel comfortable around someone new, including your new therapist. And so if you feel a little bit uncomfortable at first, that's okay. Give it some time. It may take a couple of sessions for you to feel completely at ease. That's very, very normal. Think about like when you were a kid and you went to your first day of school. The first day of school was usually very nerve-wracking, but a few weeks later, you were super confident and you had your friends and you felt completely at ease. And going to therapy can be kind of like that sometimes. And just remember to be patient with yourself. This is a challenging process sometimes, learning how to open up and share with someone about what's going on. So be very patient with yourself and know that you're already doing a very good thing by creating space for you to work on your health and healing through working with a therapist. And we're just so honored that you trust us to share this season of your life with and this part of your journey with us. So we are grateful, and we've been there. We've all been in therapy ourselves, and we know what it's like. And so be patient. So those are my tips, and I hope that they helped you feel a little bit more at ease as you prepare for your first telehealth session. And congratulations, by the way, it's super exciting. And I just want to share one thing with you before you go. If you are interested in improving your life through therapy, one of the main things that you will learn from your therapist, most likely, is about something called boundaries. And boundaries are so essential to our mental health and well-being because they tell us what to say yes to and they tell us what to say no to. And so if you'd like, I have a free book for you that I wrote all about boundaries called How to Say No Without Feeling Bad About It. And if you'd like to get a jump start on the process of learning what you learn in therapy, you can go to the link in the description below and you can get your free download of that book. And I really hope it helps you in your journey. So that's all I have for you today. Good luck, and I will see you next time.